Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting the Warhammer Plus Year 2 World Eaters Terminator. As you can see, the first thing I've done is spray them up with some matte black spray from Colourforge. Then I use Mephiston Red to start painting any of the red areas. Next I'm going to use Retributor Armour to paint all of the gold. And then I'm going to give the whole model a wash with some Agrax Earthshade. Next, I'm going to very carefully repaint the red, starting with Mephiston Red. I'm going to avoid the recesses, and the red's going to be a little bit thinner than it normally would, because I want to get a nice sort of gradual build-up for the highlights. After the Mephiston Red, it was a 50-50 mix of Mephiston Red and Evil Sunz Scarlet. And this was followed by Evil Sunz Scarlet just by itself. Followed by a 50-50 mix of Evil Sunz Scarlet and Wild Rider Red. And then lastly, a very careful edge highlight of Wild Rider Red. And then move back to the gold, relayering the Retributor Armour. The first highlight was a 50-50 mix of Retributor Armour and Uric Armour Gold. Followed by Uric Armour Gold just by itself. And then a 50-50 mix of Uric Armour Gold and Stormhost Silver. Then I painted some of the metal areas with some Iron Warriors. And the rest was painted with some Iron Hands Steel. For the pipes coming out of his chest, I painted those with Skaven Blight Dinge. And then I washed any silver metal and the Storm of Vermin fur with some Nuln Oil. Once that's dry, we're going to use some Iron Hand Steel to highlight all of the silver. And this will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Iron Hand Steel and Stormhost Silver. And then Stormhost Silver for all the peaks, and this includes the gold as well. I'm then going to use Storm Vermin Fur to highlight the Skaven Blight Dinge. Then I'm going to use some Warpstone Glow to paint the areas of green that need to be lit up. This is followed by a 50-50 mix of Warpstone Glow and Moot Green. And then lastly, Moot Green just by itself. He's got some very pale skin, so we're going to use some Rakarth Flesh. And this will be washed with some Reikland Flesh Shade. While that dries, I'm going to paint that a little light with some Wild Rider Red. And this will be highlighted with some Fire Dragon Bright. Then to make it look a little bit more like a light, we're going to use a tiny little amount of matte white. And then going to paint his mouth black. And I'll use matte white to highlight his teeth. Then going back to his skin, I'm going to relayer the Rakarth Flesh, making sure I avoid all of the recesses. And this will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Rakarth Flesh and Pallid Witch Flesh for the first set of highlights. And then Pallid Witch Flesh just by itself for the final. I'm then just going to use a tiny bit of Carroburg Crimson just underneath his eyes. And Pink Horror to draw in the markings on his head. And then finally for his eyes, I'm going to use some Flash Gitz Yellow. And with that, all you need to do is base him and the miniature is finished. I do have to say he's an absolutely fantastic miniature and I really enjoyed painting him. If you haven't got him, it's definitely well worth picking him up. It didn't take too long to paint either whatsoever, only going in for about 4.5 hours. As I said, absolutely glorious, wonderful miniature, although I'm not a big fan of painting chaos stuff, mostly because all the sort of bits around the edges of the armour, it can take a lot longer than it normally would if painting a regular Space Marine, but I still had fun doing this guy. I hope if you followed this guide, I hope it helped, and I hope you think about giving the channel a subscribe and a follow, and I will, well, I'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching, and goodbye for now.